that she needed to keep working.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to read a little bit from an Argus Leader piece from that state on the presumed first Smithfield plant death in the state of South Dakota. The headline is, "I lost him because of that horrible place. Smithfield worker dies from COVID-19. Here's a little bit of it. The 64-year-old Sioux Falls man, Agustin Rodriguez, showed up for every one of his shifts at Smithfield Foods, where he worked for nearly 2 decades. Agustin kept coming in to work even after he began experiencing COVID-19 symptoms like fever and cough because he needed to work." I want to play the governor now, Kristi Noem, and this is what she says about the way that she is looking at the businesses in her state and how they should operate. Take a listen.
We do have a hot spot in Sioux Falls. I think everybody's well aware of that, and people are talking about that. I also want to give you a little bit of perspective on this situation. I know that the national news is talking about the fact that this is a hot spot in the nation. That's fine, however they want to classify it. We'll take it. We've given our businesses an opportunity to be innovative. They've had the opportunity to still deliver services to their customers. We just have a really business-friendly environment.
Dr. Jha, is that a logical way for the governor to be looking at this? Her priority seems to be being business friendly.
Yeah, so good morning, Joy. Thanks for having me on. So I understand business friendly, but it's hard to run businesses when you have workers getting sick and dying. And what we need to understand is that if you want to be business friendly, you got to be health friendly first, because if we can protect people's public health, we can put in the things that really keep workers safe and healthy. We can get back to business when it's appropriate. But to try to just keep going as though the pandemic doesn't exist is obviously going to end up causing a lot of business harm. And I think more importantly, it's going to end up harming a lot of people, particularly folks who don't have a lot of reserves. So I think it's just very simplistic thinking that somehow you can choose business over people's health.
And what should be happening? I'm just probably going to go back to beating the same drum I do every weekend, which is if we were mass testing, if we had rapid testing, and you could say, we're going to test every single person in Sioux Falls, and we know this person has it and got over it, this person doesn't have it, this person, is a potential carrier. If we were rapid testing and could do that, isn't that the most logical way to reopen businesses, Dr. Jha?
Yeah, no, look. Yeah, so Joy, that would be great. I mean, imagine if we had ramped up our testing infrastructure the way South Korea did, the way that Germany has. We'd have so many more options. We could keep plants open. We test people. And then we just make sure that only as long as people didn't have the infection, they could come in. In very cramped quarters like plants like this, it's very hard for even one infected person to not set off a whole chain of new infections. Even if you don't have testing, which we obviously don't, there are still things you can do to separate people out, give people sick leave. There are a lot of things we could have done to make this situation better. We just didn't. And we see the consequences of that, and it's very unfortunate.
Yep, we just didn't. I want to go to you, Andrew, because this is your bailiwick here, writing about food and the ways that it interacts with our entire lives. Everyone is taking for granted that we can just order Seamless in, we can make a food run every 2 weeks. And there's not a lot of sort of second and tertiary thought about who is making that possible, right? We know that the clerks are making it possible and the truckers, but the people who are actually handling the food in the first instance it's becoming a problem. Meat packing plants, this is the Washington Post. Meat processing plants are closing due to COVID-19 outbreaks. Beef shortfalls may follow. The coronavirus has sickened workers and forced slowdowns and closures in some of the country's biggest meat processing plants, reducing production by as much as 25%, industry officials say, and sparking fears of a further round of hoarding. We have in Georgia poultry workers dead from the coronavirus, according to a company. This is an NBC report. Tyson, senior vice president for human resources, has said that the company has improved safety measures in the Camilla plant by checking employees' temperatures, requiring workers to wear face coverings, installing dividers at workstations, providing more space and break rooms. So people are still dying. Your thoughts, Andrew?
It is a horror show that is sadly, I believe, going to continue and get worse. Had we taken the proper precautions 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, even perhaps 3 weeks ago. And by that, I mean taking care of the people, as the doctor and as Caitlin both illustrated. If this is a people issue, it's not a food issue. If we took American food production and knocked it down 25%, we could still feed all Americans. And I know that sounds crazy in a country where 23% of Americans are food insecure and we waste 40% of our food. But if we were smarter about our food chain, we'd still be able to feed more Americans. But the problem becomes that cows will keep giving milk. Zucchini will keep flowering on the vine, but we can't bring people who have never done the jobs into the factories, the fields, the abattoirs, the packing plants, the fishing boats, and get them into the labor system, healthy people, so that we can continue to distribute the food. It's always not about the food, it's about the people. We have taken, I mean, you can go back to the foundational days of our country. For 400 years, we've created vulnerable and marginalized communities, taken advantage of them. Now today we've turned them on their ear and deemed them essential, but not essential enough that we protected their health by increasing spacing, giving them masks, decreasing production by a certain percentage in the Smithfield plant, for example. Perhaps it would have stayed open. I find the governor of South Dakota's messaging repugnant. Business is important, but people come first. Without the human beings, there is no business. And I fear that the Sinclair Lewis era of food production is still alive with us, and we will pay the price weeks down the road. The last point that I would make: if you see 25% of the shelves in the stores empty, it creates a lot of concern. With good national leadership, I believe we could get around that. What's going to scare a lot of people is seeing the ambiguity, uncertainty of what's missing from our shelves, and the fact that so many Americans don't have access to fresh food. That's the kind of thing that creates social unrest, and I'm petrified as I play this out in my head as to what happens if our supply chain